Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music. Today we're going to review the newest album from the band called Thrice. Major/Minor is the album title. This is Thrice's album. They've had...
It's like 8.
These guys have been around for a while. They started off as in the late 90s, early 2000s as one of those
kind of a post-hardcore,
emo.
Yeah, but they were very young when they started, so their early work is I mean, it's not awful, but it's a little more immature.
Oh, I'll go there. It's awful. It's awful.
Their first album was,
and I feel like they progressed slowly, and then they had Visu, and then. And eventually with the Alchemy indexes, people started making Radiohead comparisons, and then they came out with Beggars a couple years ago.
Why is it anytime a band experiments, people say Radiohead?
Well, clearly, they sound exactly like Radiohead, so why would
Radiohead was not the first band to experiment, let's face it.
Right. So then they came out with Beggars, which Tom and I reviewed Beggars. It was one of the first reviews we did. We loved that album. I still love that album. I still think it's a great album. Really, really well done. And Major Minor now comes out in 2011, and I've been pumped up for this.
Yeah.
You've been pumped up for it. And thus, we were really excited. We rushed to it, and then we listened to it, and I gotta admit, it was a bit of a letdown just because it was so similar to Beggars. It's almost like Beggars Part 2. And people, real Thrice fans out there, the real hardcore Thrice fans, are probably just going to be screaming at me for saying that. Because there are some minor differences, and major differences too, major and minor differences. Specifically in their songwriting, they're writing in different keys. There's a lot of major key songs on the album. I wonder if that's where the album name derives. If you know, let us know, because I don't actually know the context of the name. But it is in the same style, and then in the same production techniques as well, which I think that is the #1 highlight of this album, is just that clean, crisp, and raw production that just blasts you the whole time, and it just really highlights all the great guitar work and drumming. The drums on this in Thrice. Thrice has just a fantastic drummer. I know our friend Mike Ball, who's guest on the show a couple times, absolutely adores Thrice for that reason, and the production just exemplifies all the great instrumentation. Tom, what was your experience with Major Minor?
I did like it, and there was a lot of hype about this, and I want you to know I do my best not to let hype affect my score. I like this album for what it is, and I try to keep that separate from what other people say about it. But I was a little surprised because it's just the thing that hit me after first listen is like, these are some pretty good songs, but they don't really have anything to do with each other, it seems like. Also, you were saying that it sounds a lot like Beggars, and I can see that in the attitude and some of the songwriting style, but it's missing some of the key elements of Beggars that I really liked. And that song is like circles that are really atmospheric and then build into something. And you have some building tracks on here, but it never gets quite as reverbed out and atmospheric. And it starts to in some tracks, and some of the slower tracks, but it never really goes all the way. I feel like this album hovers around kind of a safe middle ground a lot of the time. And so I wish that really they would have been a little more extreme with that. But still, I think that some of these songs are some of Thrice's best songwriting, and then others are good, but just don't really stick out.
And one thing that I noticed is specifically in how they compose the intensities of these songs. Thrice is a rock band, and they want to be a rock band on Major Minor, and that's good. But the thing about any type of music, even rock music, even metal music, is you always have to keep your songs interesting. If you do the same thing for 3, 4, 5 minutes in a row, no one's going to pay attention towards the end of that. I mean, it takes a very, very small demographic of people that really, really like that drony or anything that just goes on for that long.
And that's why most punk bands know to keep their songs at around 2 minutes.
It's exactly right. And I feel like, and at first I thought when I listened to this the first couple times, I really thought that there was a problem. There wasn't enough dynamics here. Everything was just loud and intense and in your face at all times. Personally, I don't like that. I want to see, if it's going to be fortissimo at all times, I want to see enough, soft periods in the music as well. And then, after I kept digging, I noticed that the instrumentation and the songwriting composition, they actually it gets more intense and less intense. But the vocalist in particular on a lot of these tracks fails to do that. I feel like he's always at the most intense he can be. And I kind of wish that was a little different. I wish he would have kind of had more of a range and intensity. And on a couple tracks he does it, you know, track 5, track 8. And on Beggars specifically, but even on the Alchemy indexes, I feel like they really found that range. So I think that's one thing keeping this from really becoming the album that Thrice probably wanted this to be. I think that a couple of these tracks are just stellar, and a couple of them are a little bit forced. But other than that, I think overall, I'm going to just settle on like a 73 for this one. And I've been all over the place. I go up to 80, I go up in the 60s.
Yeah. So, I know what you mean, because it depends on the mood, and honestly, it depends on what track you're listening to at the time, because the tracks are all over the place. And I'm just going to agree with you and see you right there at 73. That's cool. Where I'm sitting at.
Cool. Are you guys big Thrice fans? I don't hear a lot about Thrice out there. Not a lot of people talk about Thrice, but like Tom was saying earlier, this album got a lot of buzz, so I'm interested to know if you've listened to Thrice. If you do, did you like this album? Why? And what's your favorite Thrice album? Leave us a comment at www.velocitiesinmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesinmusic. Follow us on Facebook and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.